everybody. My name is Gabriel Hirschberger. I'm the host of the 20 Mile Mark podcast, where we feature stories of entrepreneurs and marketers who are growing their business. And one of the important things about this podcast is that we talk about mindset, and we're also not afraid to share our stories about failure and our struggles. And I have two kick-ass entrepreneurs with me today, CJ and Eric. And they are volunteered to talk a little bit about their businesses and their failures, which is so awesome that they have the courage to do that. And what I want you guys to get from this is that if you've quit and you've done and you've tried something and it's not worked, I want to show you these two that have pushed through, kept on their 20-mile march, and show you where they're at today. So with that as an introduction, CJ, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Sure. So my name is CJ, and I am currently the CEO of an e-commerce company, and I sell on Amazon and on my own website. Prior to this business, I had a software business for a little while, and things are going really well right now, and I'm looking forward to being on your podcast, and thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Eric?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having us. I'm excited for this. I am an e-commerce entrepreneur, and I am the president of two e-commerce businesses, and one is Dropship, one is Shopify and Amazon, and I've been doing that for about 3 years now. And just looking to grow those businesses.
Sweet. Two e-commerce rock stars. I'm so excited. CJ, I know you didn't start off with e-commerce. You did a SaaS at first, right?
Yeah, so I initially had a SaaS product and had built the product up and had a couple customers, and ultimately, it was not my thing, and it took 2 years to figure that out. I am not a developer, and I'm not really techie inclined, I'd say. I built this software kind of in a construction-based niche that I hadn't personally worked in, and I didn't feel like I really connected with a lot of my customers on that personal level, where they would be the type of people I wanted to hang around and have as my friends. And then I was also working in a lot of analysis and really key points of the business. So what I discovered from that experience was when you're in that, the type of business you have also has to fit your personality and the lifestyle and how you want to interact with your customers. So for me in that business, it was going to be, I came to a point where I realized it was going to be a lot of ongoing 24/7 customer support, hand-holding people to get onto the program, and I would have to have serious security on there, and to protect everyone's information, and it would have to be up all the time because we were dealing with a lot of analytical data that they would need to be able to access all the time. And also just the nature of the business was really not working for me. And because of all those things, it wasn't successful. It was not jiving with my unique genius at all, or the type of skill that I really have to bring to the world. And even though I had taken a course and they had told me, anyone can build this type of business, I think that it wasn't that anyone could build that type of business. You really have to think about the type of business you're building and how that fits with your skill sets and what you want to bring to the world and how you want to show up. So I decided to close that down, and it wasn't bringing in a lot of revenue, and it was costing me a lot of money and time, and ultimately it was joyless for me.
So did you think that you would have enjoyed the SaaS? When you started it and you got really far down that road?
I liked the idea behind it. I liked the idea that people told me. And I think that for a lot of people that are just getting into entrepreneurship and, they're seeing a lot of these marketers that are marketing different programs on this type of business or that type of business, they hear the marketing pitch around it. you can have this business, you can have it up and running in 6 to 12 months. It can be making you tons of money.
So you got sucked in,
all that.
right? The sales
Yeah.
just...
Yeah, I was a little naive on the marketing end of things, and I got sucked in, and it was like, it sounded really great. It all sounded really great until I really got into it, and the nitty-gritty of the day-to-day was not what I enjoyed. And I could have taken that, and I could have said, oh, well, obviously, I'm just not meant to be an entrepreneur. But I knew that I was meant to be an entrepreneur. I put everything I had into that business to make it work, and before I decided, okay, I'm done. And now I look back on it, and it was a great learning experience, and I can look back and I can be proud of the work that I put into it. And I know, having left it, that I'm like, okay, I did everything I could, and I left it, and I don't look back with any regrets at all. And I think that that's a key thing for people to think about when they're thinking about what kind of business they want to do, or if they're deciding to leave a business, is, have you done everything that you really want to do so that when you look back on this, you're going to have no regrets? So that was what I had to do, and I really pushed it to the end.
Eric, do you have anything that can relate to that struggle?
I mean, I think that in a way of kind of being deceived by the marketing or naive to the marketing, I think that goes for any business, anything in entrepreneurship. Like, it's not easy. There's no silver bullet. There's nothing that, like, oh, just do these 10 steps and you're going to make lots of money and sit on the beach. Like, that stuff doesn't exist, even though a lot of the marketing tells us it does.
Tim Ferriss talk about that a little bit in the 4-Hour Work Week or something? So all you got to do is just like check in a little bit, and just the whole drop ship thing is just going to, I don't know.
Yeah, all that stuff. And I mean, I started down the SaaS path as well. I did it in a partnership, and ultimately ended up not working out. We only made it to pre-sale, and then the partnership broke up. So
why did the partnership break up?
It was all just, it was a 50-50 split when we were talking in person, but when it came time to put numbers on paper and how the business was really going to be structured, since it was real and we actually had a solution, and we were starting to ask for money, that's when we didn't see eye to eye on how the split was supposed to happen.
Okay. Interesting. Tell me about how you made this big investment and then it went south.
You mean how I got scammed for $8,000?
Yeah, you could call it that.
So yeah, I after falling
First
out,
off, like, oh man, I just want to let that sink in for a second. How Eric got scammed for $8,000. I think, like, that's a big chunk of change.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have $8,000 in their savings. You know?
Like that was like, I'd gotten a big bonus from my full-time job, and I was like, instead of using it to pay off bills, I thought, I'm going to make this investment. Like, this is really going to launch me forward into entrepreneurship. This is what's going to get me out of my job.
No risks, no rewards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Had you done something before that? I mean, did you take little baby steps before, like, okay, yeah, $8,000, I'm just going to put that in there? Like, did you do anything that was like $100 or $200 or anything like that?
I mean, I'd say for years I tried my own, like, little info marketing things, but I never really put a lot of money into that stuff.
Okay.
But I learned for myself, like, I have to have some kind of skin in the game to really motivate me to get it done.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I felt like, and also I had a mentor at the time that was a friend, and he was really into investing. And when I was telling him about my struggles in SaaS, he said, why do you want to build a business from the ground up? Like, the failure rate is high.
Right.
He said, why don't you go find a business that's actually running and successful and has customers and is proven? There's all kinds of business owners that they burn out after they get their thing launched. They're off the ground. They burn out.
Yeah.
You can step in there with a little bit of money. You can take over and scale it from there.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant idea. And so that's what I did. And I found an e-commerce business that was really in my wheelhouse and expertise of kind of what I knew, and I thought I could really relate to the customers. It would be easy for me to do content and things around that to really grow the brand. And so I thought, this is like perfect. Like it's meant to be, because it was, there's not a lot of e-commerce businesses that are like totally in your
alignment.
Yeah. And so, I went for it and bought it for $8,000. And day one, when I take over, traffic went to 0. Like no more traffic. And I thought, okay, well, something's going on. And I picked up the phone, thought I would just start calling customers, introduce myself as, the new owner of the business, and start maybe doing some little bit of idea extraction on the customers to find out, what their pain points are, and to kind of gauge their level of interest in the products, and see what I could do to improve the business. And come to find out, those customers didn't really know who I was or the business, and so it
was made up? Like the numbers, the business?
Yeah.
The customers weren't real? The business wasn't real?
The customers, the sales were real, and they did buy those products.
Okay.
But they didn't buy them through that business.
Oh.
And so whoever the marketer that was popping up these websites was going and partnering with someone who already does, sales in that vertical, and then he would just give them some money to run those sales through that business on paper. So the money would flow through that business, but it wasn't really legit. And, there's lots of lessons learned there. Like it's my first time buying a business. I thought I did due diligence, but, at the end I didn't dig deep enough to really match, here's the traffic coming in, here's the sale happening, here's the money going in the bank account. I didn't trace every single step of every purchase, because it looked from the outside like it was legit. So,
were some of the businesses on there that you were looking at, they weren't all fake or fraudulent, were they?
No, the purchases were real, and they do buy those products. And
right,
so,
but no, when you bought the businesses, were you looking at like a marketplace of like buying?
Yeah, it was one of those sites. Not to name the site, but there's sites where you can go and buy businesses, and you can buy websites, and the listing was definitely described as a fully running turnkey e-commerce business, ready to go with customers, making money.
Gotcha. How did you feel after being swindled? Angry? Were you?
Yeah, I was pretty upset.
Then did you go into depression?
I think I probably stopped for a couple weeks. I just let it sit and kind of sink in. I had to really decide what I do. Like there was a choice to either throw in the towel and say, hey, this was an $8,000 learning experience, or I can say, you know what, I have a business, or I have a really expensive domain name, and, let's build this thing from the ground up.
Do you still have the domain name?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what your business is based on now?
Last year I did $200,000 in revenue.
That's turning it around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it was a lot of work.
Some of those good domain names are like $8,000.
Yeah, it wasn't that good.
It wasn't that good.
They basically took another domain name and then put an S on the end, made it plural. Yeah, one of those.
Okay. Did you have kids at the time?
So it's funny, my daughter was just being born. My son was 3. My daughter was just being born right when the sale of this was about to close. So I was closing on this business, had a new baby coming, and so a lot of stuff happening all at once. And so a lot of like joy and excitement.
Yeah.
And then a lot of kind of depression and disappointment.
Dude, you're a warrior. To have gone to that and experienced that, come throughout on the other end of it, on like victory. Do you see yourself as that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty proud of what I did to get through that.
Yeah. CJ, I've left you out for a little while, but did you ever lost that much money, or have you had failures that sort of felt like that?
I think like when I finally decided to close my SaaS company, I had put in 2 years worth of work. I had not had a job, so I was living on savings, and I was investing my own money into building the product because SaaS products are very expensive to build. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And it takes a long time to do it. And so I remember a month where I was like, I don't actually know how I'm paying my rent next month. And it was super stressful. And I was in the process of like trying to find a job. I had just been like, okay, I'm not doing anything with this business. I'm going to try and find a job. And I had another friend that came to me. He's like, well, if you're still interested in doing business stuff, I have a friend, and he was able to get up and running with a e-commerce business pretty quickly, and he's making pretty decent money. And I was like, well, I still want to be an entrepreneur because I know that that's my path. And I think that when you do know that, even if
how do you know it's your path?
How do I know it's my path? I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. I was the kid with the lemonade stands and the kids starting up different organizations. And when I was a teenager, I used to, I had my own little business. And so I just constantly was involved in entrepreneurship, involved with new startups and new companies. And I knew that I really enjoyed that. And I also knew that coming into a business and being an employee, I wasn't actually really great at all the entry-level stuff. It was definitely not where my skill set lied. I was much better at the strategic thinking side of things. So if I wanted to do that, and I wanted to do what I knew I was good at, coming into being an employee and working my way up was going to actually be quite a challenge. So instead, I was like, well, if I start my own thing, then I can bring in people that have skill sets that I don't have. Obviously, there's a little naive thinking there because when you're starting up a business, you do everything. CEO is chief everything officer. Yeah. So,
yeah. You don't know. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And that's the thing about entrepreneurship is you're figuring out as you go. And so I do remember kind of hitting bottom. There's definitely a period of depression. There was around I have no money. All of this is a failure. I've been working on this for 2 years. Everyone's like, what are you doing now? And I'm like, well, I'm just trying to find a job because my whole thing failed, quote unquote, which I see it as a huge learning experience. And
right. Only learning. Right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, it was very stressful. It was, and definitely from that experience, I recommend a lot of people that are just starting out, having a job and building something on the side until it really starts to take off is very valuable because you can learn and build and you know that the roof over your head and the food on your table are not in jeopardy. Mm-hmm. And when that starts to happen, you start to get in a really bad energy cycle. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stress around it. There's a lot of anxiety and you start to make really bad business decisions. Mm-hmm. So, and you don't give a business enough time to really grow up. So I relate businesses a lot of times to kids. Mm-hmm. When you're starting a business, it's like an infant. It needs a lot of care and attention, and it doesn't do a whole lot for you at that point in time. And then as it grows up, it starts to be able to walk and to talk and to you start to see it develop, and then it starts to be its own thing, its own personality. Mm-hmm. And without other financial sources of income, a lot of people that I see taking on the full-time role, which is what I did, and that's the lesson that I learned was to have something, even if you can set up your life so you live really low cost and you maybe work 3 days a week and you got 4 days a week to work on your business or another 3 days a week to work on your business and a day for just total rejuvenation, which is another important thing that a lot of people starting up don't realize. They burn out because they don't have any time to really re-energize themselves and they don't have the practices in place for that. And I did too. I was totally burnt out by the end of that experience. So the burnout and the lack of money and like having to go to everyone and say, yeah, it was, I had to shut it down and it's not going to happen. And, it was really heavy and hard, but it's actually through those experiences that I think that I came to the realization that like my sense of self-worth, not based on whether my business is a success or not. The people in my life that really matter are going to love me regardless. That I have the relationships in my life. I'm never not going to have a roof over my head. Someone will offer me their couch or their floor. Like you start to really feel a new sense of almost security in the failure. So I had to go through that process to really learn how to fail, because in entrepreneurship, failure is a constant. Success also happens, but failure is a constant. You're constantly trying. Okay, that didn't work. I have to iterate. I have to come back around and I have to try again. And that's a cycle we have to learn how to do as entrepreneurs. And a lot of us are not used to that. We don't grow up in that. Our school system does not encourage that. It doesn't say, oh, you totally failed on that. Awesome, man. Like, let's try that again. Mm-hmm. It's like, you failed on that. You got an F. You need to pull up your socks and do better. Mm-hmm. It's not actually encouraging trying and going outside the box. And so that was something that my whole first entrepreneurial experience with a serious business, because like I said, I always had little things going up until that point, but with a serious business was actually just an exercise in me learning how to fail and how to get through that.
Eric, do you see that same thing as learning how to fail? And that's not related to your self-worth at all? Like, are you in alignment there, and do you come to that same conclusion?
Yeah. Like, I definitely didn't see it as a reflection on me or my character or anything. It was definitely just learning. Like, you don't know what you don't know, but you can learn, and then it next time.
Whereas I initially saw it as a huge hit on like who I was and how people would see me and value me.
And I think that's why a lot of people who start off like in the entrepreneur category and start to experiment and do some things, and they run some ads and they build some websites and things like that, and they fail a lot, and like nothing takes off for a while, and then their friends are kind of like, hey, how's it going with that website building thing, your marketing thing you're doing in there, and then they're like, they feel like it's a reflection of who they are. Like, they told all their friends, oh, I'm going to be this awesome web developer, iOS app developer, and then they fail, doesn't take off, and so they just kind of like brush it under the rug, and they give up on that. They give up on that dream, and you guys didn't give up on that. You just didn't see it as a reflection of who, like, you sort of did see it as a reflection of yourself a little bit.
That was the process of overcoming. That was, I often believe that when you're in business, it can be quite a spiritual journey, because it opens up all the inner stuff that for us to look at and for me to look at. And that was something that came up, was I had, from probably a very young age, tied my sense of worth to what I was accomplishing and to this external validation of, oh, you succeeded at something, you got validation, and therefore you're worthy, instead of internally validating myself and having a sense of, I am worthy regardless, because I'm human and I'm here to contribute to this world. And so it was actually the entrepreneurial process that gave me that kind of spiritual growth that was so valuable and affects everything else in my life, really. So it was a beautiful experience that way. But initially, no, I was very much tied to, I need to be successful to have other people say, yeah, you're successful and worthy. So that was total growth period for me.
So Eric, I'm going to shine the spotlight back on you. And is everything good now? I mean, like, do you have any, have the struggles and problems sort of just shifted and just evolved over time?
I guess I would say, I would reiterate the importance of having a job, because that really, I mean, I don't know what I would have done had, I went through those failures and not had anything else to fall back on.
You were still working.
Yeah, I was still working. So that's what I guess at least gave me some comfort, knowing like my family's not going to starve.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. A lot of entrepreneurs are kind of like, I can't stand my job. I hate it so much. And so like, I'm going to quit. And then they still don't have they have a little bit of revenue maybe coming in, but not enough to pay their bills. And then they kind of get into that little trouble about like, and you said making bad choices because of the whole, like, I don't have money to pay rent next month. I'm running on a runway really quick and I've already quit. And it's not taking off like I thought it was going to take off. And so they have to maybe make some bad choices.
Yeah. And I guess I've always seen myself as, like, I don't give up on things very easily.
You're persistent.
Yeah.
You've been that way? Like, you're that kid
that tenacity to like, just not give up. See it through all the way to the end.
Is that a key ingredient for entrepreneurship?
I think it is, and you just have to define what the end is. Like, don't stay too long, at a detriment to yourself. But go until you have learned everything you need to learn from that experience. And yeah, I'd say
I like these key ingredients ideas. I'd like to continue on this topic a little bit more. If you guys can think about
like
others.
Yeah, happiness for sure is something that I didn't, that wasn't an ingredient for me for a while. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's important to have in there. Just judging like, and it's hard, especially when you're in a job, and if you're not happy about the job. Mm-hmm. Like, I couldn't say that I hated my job because it was great. Like, I mean, I owe a lot to that company. I am where I am today because of that. Yeah. So I can't say that I hated it. Mm-hmm. I wasn't fulfilled doing what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And so it was important that I find something that was going to push me forward. And I think for me, I guess that inner happiness and self-worth, like, I have to be challenged and I have to always be growing and learning. I don't want to always be the smartest person in the room.
So curiosity, is that a key ingredient?
I think curiosity is definitely a key ingredient. Curiosity, a willingness to explore, a willingness to be wrong, and
so humility.
Humility in the sense, like an openness to learning. Entrepreneurship is, a lot of it is just about learning. You're learning about yourself, you're learning about the market, you're learning about all new ways of doing things. Marketing is constantly changing. You're learning about how to work and interact with other people, how to manage people, especially as your business starts to scale. So that's very important. And I think with that, sometimes it can become very overwhelming. And I think that being able to prioritize what needs to happen in a business, understand that as one individual, you're not going to be able to do everything all at once, all the time. Whether that means if you're going to have a social media strategy, maybe you have to pick a platform to start on. Maybe you do Facebook and then Instagram and then Twitter. Or if it's a product-based business like ours are, maybe you start with a single product. Mm-hmm. And then you have two products, and then you've learned how to do the product thing, so then you can expand much faster. So like, kind of I'm trying to categorize that as like task management or just prioritization? Focus. I would say focus. Focus, I like that. It's about focus. What I've seen a lot of with up-and-coming entrepreneurs, people who want to be entrepreneurs, maybe don't have a business yet, is there's sometimes not a lot of focus. They have 15 different things on the go. Mm-hmm. They're trying out a whole bunch of different types of projects. And there's room for that to see what's going to take, what's going to start to get a little traction and go with that. But at a point, if you're really trying to grow a company, there's a sense of focus there in terms of what are you doing? If you're trying to grow an e-commerce company and you're doing coaching and you're doing an info product and you're doing consulting, and because oftentimes you're trying to get some short-term cash flow to build this company up, what ends up happening is you're stretched so thin between so many things, you haven't focused enough and prioritized enough that nothing goes well. And even within a company, once it starts to really get off the ground, you really start rolling, even then, you still have to focus. You know, if you have a product in one market and a product in another market and a product in another market, or you're trying 15 different marketing strategies, there's a limit in resources. It's about resource allocation, and some of that is your mental allocation, some of that is your monetary allocation, and being able to really see, okay, what is going to get me the highest leverage results first? Like, what do I need to do first to get the most results? And then based on that, what can I do next? So from my experience, when I launched my e-commerce company, I had a single product. So I was selling that on like the Amazon platform, and I had my own website. But realistically, when people came to my website, you know, driving traffic to my website was not as important at that stage because I couldn't help people upsell, increase their cart size. So the value, like how much I could really put into driving traffic was a whole nother thing. Now we have collections. So that's something that came down the road. So our focus initially was the Amazon platform, making sure that we understand what customers like. This one product, doing that. Now we are doing more products, and we're focusing in on certain types of marketing. In 5 years from now, we'll probably have a lot more going, but we'll have the systems behind that, and we'll have the people behind that. So I find a lot of people are getting really overwhelmed in the building of a business, and the key is to not get too overwhelmed, is to take bite-sized chunks. You know, for this 3-month period, try this marketing strategy and see if that is going to work for you before you start moving on to like 15 other options.
Yeah, and for Indecision, I think people who are undecided on what they want to do, they have lots of ideas. I think it's important just to decide. Just like
take action.
Just decide. Like that's it. Just pick something. And then know that you have time. Like,
how are those two things related? Indecision and procrastination.
I think that a lot of times people think that if they don't decide, then they're still on stage one of, well, I haven't really picked what I want to do. So they don't have to take action because they're still playing around with it.
It's safe. It's really safe.
Safety.
Yeah.
Both are safe.
Safe.
Yeah. And it's the fear of missing out. Like, if I go for this idea, then this one's not going to happen. And that's not necessarily true. Like, you might try this one, and 6 months down the road, you realize, I really don't like this niche or this idea, or it's just not going to work. And then you
or in
say,
CJ's case, it was 2 years, right? With the SaaS thing.
Well, and
that's okay.
I'm quite persistent as well. And that was for me, personally, I knew that I had to try everything in my power so that when I walked away, I was like, you know what? I did everything I could, and I feel totally comfortable that I'm not in that. And that's how I am in life as well. I don't give up on something, but I know when I get to the end of it, like it's done, and I'm okay walking away. And I know I'll look back with no regrets. I want to live a life with no regrets. And I think that when people decide to just opt out of entrepreneurship because their first thing failed or they had a little hard time, I just want to ask them, in 10 years from now, when you look back, will you regret that you just gave up on the whole concept of it?
Yeah. That's like kind of one of those stoic tenets, looking back at your life, looking back on your deathbed and having, no regrets to have not tried.
Which is the only failure, really, is to not have tried. Which links back to indecision. Because indecision is really not trying. It's not taking action. It's not really doing it. It's having an excuse.
Did you guys start off with the same sort of educational, like, this is how you do e-commerce, this is how you do Amazon? Did you guys?
Maybe on the Amazon side, I kind of just jumped into it. I had no experience with e-commerce, and the business I bought was originally it was built on an open source platform, and so it was not as easy as like, oh, I'm just gonna spin up a Shopify site. It was, I have to build a server and install software, and I'm more on the techie side, so that was all comfortable to me. But it was also a whole nother hurdle, like trying to be a CEO, but you're doing everything. And, I was building the server stack and installing software and trying to do marketing and customer service. So.
And in contrast, my technical skills when I started entrepreneurship were really low. Getting a domain for me was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. And I had to have someone walk me through how to do that. Like, it was not, that was not where my skill set lied. And so, which is why I chose to go this route. But, so I definitely took some online classes, which I think are really helpful. Being part of a community was really helpful, in terms of how to start a particular type of business. I think having a lot of friends and a community around me that I can go to and ask questions about how people are, approaching certain problems or issues. Do they have contacts that I can, also have contacts with, and being able to share that's hugely valuable. So for me, that was kind of a necessary thing. I felt like I needed to have that educational system, and then also the community support system.
So you guys are both e-commerce product people, and do you have to have that, again, that sort of alignment, passion behind it? Should you feel like you're that kind of person to do e-commerce? Should you sort of make sure you're in alignment with that before you go and try it out?
I think that sometimes you find that you're aligned with things that you never knew. I think people should try lots of things, especially early on when they're exploring entrepreneurship. Try lots of things and see what you actually enjoy. I do think that ultimately I have a lot of friends that don't feel passion for their products and don't feel passion for their businesses. I did not feel passion for my first business. And I think it's a choice about what are you really passionate about in life, and how do you want to live your life? And I want to live my life where I wake up in the morning and I'm excited to work on my business, where I love the product that I'm bringing to customers, where I can stand behind that and I can be like, you know what? I know we have an awesome product and I am happy every time someone buys it because I know they're going to be happy with the experience. And the best thing for me is getting the emails from customers who say that they love it. They love the experience. They love the customer service and the product. That lights me up. And if you're waking up every day and you're just doing it for the money, it is going to feel like a terrible job. And well, that's my opinion anyways.
Yeah. I think integrity is important. I mean, it's really easy to open up a Shopify site and then drop ship stuff from China. And anybody can do that. And I don't think that's going to last very long. I mean, if you want to make a quick buck, sure. But if you want to build something that you're proud of and that can, you can grow and change the world with, or change. And when I say the world, it doesn't have to be the world. It could just be your world, your family's world. And so, yeah, that was important to me, just to be proud of what I'm selling. Whether it was software or an info product or e-commerce, I want to be proud of what I'm selling people.
Yeah. How does a happy customer make you feel? Does it light you up, like CJ was saying before?
Yeah, totally. I mean, those emails or reviews, it feels good to know that something that you created is helping someone else. I mean, I think that's ultimately what business is about. People have problems and we're providing solutions. And when you can do that in a way that helps people, it's awesome.
You have an awesome shirt that says "Problem equals solution," right? You were wearing it yesterday.
Problems equal opportunities.
Opportunities.
Yeah.
Problems equal opportunities. Yeah. I want to see, Eric, what you would say about consuming information versus then taking action, and that kind of whole balance to actually growing a business.
Yeah, I think focusing on purpose of the consumption. And consumption could be, for me, it's just learning. So if I'm listening to a podcast, it's because my intention is that I'm going to learn something that I will then be able to take action on, and it will help my business. And so I think what sometimes, and early on, I lacked this was that intention of just, I'm just going to continue to absorb. And I was like digging for some magic, like silver bullet that was going to be, this is the one tip that is going to make me successful.
Mm-hmm.
And just as, with the marketing, there's no business model that's like, if you do this, you're going to be rich and sit on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with consumption. Like, you're not going to read one thing that's going to
change everything.
But if you're doing it with the intention of, I'm going to learn something,
mm-hmm.
and this is I'm going to be able to implement it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there has to be a cutoff point of like, I'm not going to just continue to consume information
mm-hmm.
without taking action on it.
Mm-hmm. How's your consumption action balance these days?
I have pretty low consumption levels. I really appreciate Tim Ferriss's information light diet. And I think that in current society, there's a lot of FOMO.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that are fearing that they're not going to have the piece of information they need, or, they need to, everyone's saying, oh, have you read this book, that book, this book? Oh, you need to read these books. Or you need to hear these podcasts, or you need to read this blog, or you need to follow that. And it's very overwhelming. Mm-hmm. I find it very overwhelming anyways.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
for
super
me,
overwhelming.
It is.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of information out there. I think that I like Eric's idea around purpose. What is the purpose of this information? And if you know that the purpose of the information is, I need something that's a little bit motivational, because sometimes that content makes you feel all fired up and ready to go inside. Oh, I'm going to go take action on my business.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to take the action. If there is one silver bullet,
mm-hmm.
one piece of information that will make you successful, it is that you need to take action consistently. This is the 20-mile march after all. Take action consistently. If you consume a piece of information and you want to try that, you actually need to implement and see if it works for you and your business. If not, then find something new and try that. And then find something new and try that. But in between all that consumption of information is a lot of action. It's a lot of implementation. Great businesses aren't built on just great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
They're built on great executors.
Mm-hmm.
They're built by great executors. And that is why VCs always invest in a team over an idea. They will take an average idea with an excellent team over an excellent idea and an average team, because it's about execution and implementation. And I find that the consumption of information takes people away from taking action on their business.
Yeah. And we have more and more information these days in the society coming at us faster. Yeah. So this has been great, and I have loved our topic. I think it's super helpful for people, and I think that it can, my hope that people will listen to this podcast and be inspired by your stories, and will just start again, pick up after however long a break it's been. I hope I'm speaking to you that you will, get back up and do whatever it is, and don't feel shame. Don't feel that you're not good enough. You are worthy. My two guests are awesome e-commerce rock stars, but they're just people too. And there's anybody can have their success, match their level of success and beyond. And you can do it too. So, thank you, CJ, and thank you, Eric, for your wisdom and your advice. And ultimately, the most important thing is the inspiration, because I want everybody listening to be successful and to find more joy, more happiness, and more love in their life. So that wraps it up here. As always, leave us your comments and reviews and subscribe. And thanks so much for listening. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.